Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Our apologies for a few minutes of waiting there as we got our tech together. Thank you for joining us today. Today we are hosting yet another Command It webinar. So we're so thankful for everybody who has registered, and we have a special guest with us today. To present on her career journey to technical leadership in embedded software engineering. Our guest today is Shanna-Shaye Forbes. She is with L&T Technology Services Limited. She has over 15 years of experience in the area of embedded software engineering. She's worked in many different sectors, including the defense industry, smart storage, and oil and gas services. And she's currently working for a client in the aerospace industry. So today she's going to share her insights with us about her career path, any key lessons that she's learned, any strategies that could be useful to us in advancing in technical leadership. So we're very excited to have Shanna-Shaye with us here today. We do want to let you know that the chat will be open. So if you do have questions throughout the presentation, we will be monitoring that chat. Again, my name's Tamika. I'm with Command It, and I'm the Senior Program Manager for the LEAP Alliance. And so we're very excited to have all of you registered and with us today. With that being said, I would like to introduce officially Shanna-Shaye Forbes, and I would like to ask you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shanna-Shaye Forbes. Most people call me Shanna. I am an senior embedded software engineer with L&T Technologies, and I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old who kind of in my life more than you would think. But yeah, that's me. And feel free to ask questions in the chat, raise your hand. I apologize in advance if I don't notice the raised hands, but yeah, I'm open to like an open discussion if everyone else is okay with that format. So yeah.
Sure. Did you want to share any slides as we begin, or did you want me to go ahead and?
So just to heads up what I'm prepped to share, I can talk about my career journey, lessons learned, advice for the future. If people have questions about like balancing work and family, I'm also comfortable answering those questions, but we can totally table those if no one has any questions in that regard. So yeah.
Okay, well then I'll just go ahead and open with one of our first questions to you, and you can use your slide deck as you want. So for your work in embedded software, it's recognized that generative AI is widely used as a tool to help with software development. So that's a hot topic everybody's thinking about and talking about. However, it's also recognized that much work is needed related to software verification, making software performant, and et cetera. We would welcome learning about how you use generative AI in your work, if at all.
Okay. So to be very frank, but the current client I'm working with through L&T doesn't use generative AI at all. And so I can't really delve into it since we're not really using it. So I know I've used like validation tools like QAC to analyze the software, but it's not really AI centric. So
Can you elaborate on your verification tools that you've used?
so in QAC with the current client to do like static analysis for the firmware. I've worked on previous teams that use Coverity for static analysis. Another team initially used Valground I think it's called, and then later you switched to Coverity. So it just depends on what they can afford, what resources they can afford, because things cost. So yeah.
Okay. So with that explanation of how you're not currently using it or generative AI as much with your current client, Would you be able to give us some aspects about your current position that you do find most interesting, especially in today's climate, or just most interesting to you personally? How did you get to where you are, and what do you love about the things that you get to do today in your current role?
Um, let's see. It's been a journey. It's not what I initially expected. I've been with L&T Technology Services for a little over 4 years. If you had asked me coming out of grad school, I'd have probably told you I'd worked for like one or two companies for my entire career, but it didn't really pan out that way. So, what I like about the company now is more the people I work with and how the clients treat us, that type of thing. And so, it makes like the day to day of working, even when certain things are a little frustrating, worth it. In the sense that like we're all people, some people get sick, we're all willing to learn, going through the process type thing. We're at different experience levels. We work cohesively as a team. So I really enjoy that, like when the team works as a good unit, if that makes sense at all. So that's one of the things I really enjoy. Yeah.
And how about the steps that you took to get to where you are now? What kinds of things did
So
you experience?
yeah, and so I have a slide on that. Like I said, I
Oh,
expected to work for, yeah, so that's my next slide. I expected to work for just two companies, but when I started looking for industry positions out of grad school, it was a climate similar to what we have now, because I was looking in 2011. There were a lot of layoffs going on at different companies. Not a lot of people were hiring. And for
mm-hmm.
personal reasons, I needed to get back to Texas. And so I got one offer that would let me come back to Texas, and I took it. And so, sorry, I got one offer that let me come back. And so I started out my career in industry when layoffs were happening heavily. And so I made sure I put it on there. And like everywhere on the slides where you notice like a raised hand, that's where I had a layoff happen. And I think it's really important that like some, especially people in like just starting in the field now, realize that it's not like the world doesn't end. It may feel like it, but it doesn't really end. And if you can prep for it mentally, it's really helpful. And so it doesn't like a layoff doesn't change your value as a person. It doesn't change that you're a competent engineer. Just like be sincerely who you are, and another opportunity will come about. Like it happens way more often than you think. And initially, I thought it just happened like a layoff would just happen to like a not like someone who's performing like not up to par. So like a below standard performer. But like I've seen it happen to like your high performers where it's just kind of you you have to let some they have to let someone go, and so it's not personal, it's not a performance issue, it's just they can't afford to keep paying you type thing. And so I really 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 want people to be aware of that and see like that it may not like this journey career journey may not be what you have in mind initially, but like there's nothing wrong with shifting and pivoting, and you can still stay in the embedded space and grow and develop and still like get to a good leadership level if that's your goal if you shift companies. I started off at Lockheed Martin in Fort Worth, and I was in a group within their advanced development program. I was with them for a year, and I got encouraged to consider like the engineering leadership development program or another leadership development program they had. And I I was there learning, growing, and I happened to be as I mentioned, I took the job with Lockheed because I needed to be back in Texas. My dad was not doing well, and so a quick drive is a lot easier than a flight type thing because I was living in California before I started at Lockheed. And I'll say 2 weeks into like starting at Lockheed, they sent out an email saying like company wide they were going to be laying off 1,500 people. And to be honest, I freaked out. And someone took me aside and went, look, when you're a new hire, You're good for 2 years. You don't have to worry. Honestly, I was concerned, like, should I buy my washer and dryer or like not? Like go to the laundromat, that type of thing. And after she had the conversation with me, I was like, okay, I can go ahead and buy it. I was with them for a year, and I happened to, was it like the March? I started in the summer. So June, I started in either June or July of 2011 with them. And I think either like the February or the March, I happened to be in Houston because my dad was in the hospital, not doing well with health issues. And I got a call from a manager at HP. And he said, "Hey, I came across your resume. When do you finish school? I think we have a role for you that you'd be interested in. Can we talk?" That type of thing. And like we chit-chatted, and I was honest. I was like, I'm working for Lockheed now, and I'm like, I just happened to be in Houston for like to visit with my parents. I didn't go into, oh, my dad's in the hospital type thing. And he was like, "You're here? Come in tomorrow. Come in." And I was like, I don't have clothes. I have jeans and some shirt. I have a couple different jeans. And he was like, "Yeah, come in. It doesn't matter." And so he's like, well, he didn't say it doesn't matter. He said, "We're not that formal here." And so I went in, I did well enough. I got an offer. And my mom, I'll be brutally honest, my mother was like, "Take it. You're going to make more money and you don't have to drive 4.5, 5 hours to get here." And so that's how I ended up leaving Lockheed and coming to HB in Houston. It was purely I get closer to my parents. My dad's having health issues, so win-win. And I was with that group so division and group for 4 years, and we over three different companies, and that kind of doesn't make sense. So I started with HP. Just before the 2 year mark, we got informed that we were going to the division was going to be going over to PMC Sierra because HP and PMC had entered into a licensing agreement. And so for the IP that we were working on, PMC was going to own it essentially now when details were in their licensing agreement. So all the full-time engineers went over to PMC. And we were literally sitting in the same cubes while PMC did the build out of its office, like our same old H cubes in HP. So we had our last day with HP was a Friday, and then that following Monday, we started with PMC Sierra. And like our badges to get into the HP building changed, but that was the only big change. I will say before we switched over from HP to PMC Sierra, I had a talk with my manager because I was always taught like closed mouths don't get fed. And so I'm a planning personality, so I like to go, okay, I'm at this company. Where do I see myself in like 5 years, 10 years? Because my plan was very much be at a company for a good chunk of time, if not one company. Well, this it was a second company. And so I looked at detail for like management track if you want to go up all the levels, technical track if you wanted to go up all the levels. And for like technical fellow, I was like, yeah, I'm not even worried about that. I just want to know what the next step is. And so I had a conversation with my manager at the time, and I straight up asked him. I was like, during one of our one-on-ones, I was like, what does it look like for one of your employees to get to the next level? Because even if I'm not ready yet, I'm a planning personality, so I want to know. I have a planning personality, so I want to know like what do I work toward type thing. And so for him, and this will vary from manager to manager, team to team, his feedback was that for the next position, he wanted you to already be doing all the tasks, like all the steps, already doing the work. Is there a hand raised? No. Okay. Already be doing all the work for the next level. And so by then it's just kind of a checkbox. And he said, so what do you want to do, like work-wise? And I described what I had in mind for like the ideal thing. And he was like, okay, this is what I have available. And so which of the two would you like? And I was honest for which of the two. And I got the chance to, so I got to work on an area I was more comfortable with. And because I had asked him about the next level, I got the opportunity to supervise. So just the tasking, I wasn't in any way, shape, or form their manager for a contractor as well as a new grad engineer that had just started with the group. So I got that learning experience because I asked. And so we went from all that to put things in perspective. We went from HP to PMC Sierra. And then, of course, when we switched over, they tried to optimize and streamline stuff. And was it about a year in at PMC Sierra? We learned that there was a bidding war between Skyworks and Microsemi for who would own, like two companies wanted to like buy PMC Sierra essentially. And at that time, it's not something I'd ever experienced. The previous experience had been like, okay, just go work for them. You're working on the same thing. It's just who writes your check is different. And I was like, okay. And so I was still with the same group, same division. Further up, like higher level up, things had changed, but streamlined and down at my level, nothing apart from who writes my check and which processor we're working with has changed type thing. And so we switched over to Microsemi. Again, they're trying to streamline, get the most out of the new acquisition that they have. And things got very, very stressful. And so others around me just a handful started looking. Someone jumped ship, went to another company. And so I started looking around and interviewed and got an offer from IP Datatel. It was a much smaller company than HP. They were well out of the startup phase. And so I was still working on firmware. And so the group from HP did the smart storage. So think of like the bunch of drives that go into like a data center. So that was the area the group from HP was in. And so I went, oh, there are questions in the chat. Sorry. Oh, oh,
No, those are just comments about closed
oh,
captions. You can continue.
okay. Sorry,
Right.
sorry.
We're monitoring for you.
And so
Mhm.
I went over to IP Datatel. I was with that company for 2 years and 8 months, and I did firmware for the BAT communicators. So it's in home security. So when you don't have like a phone line in your home, you can have a BAT communicator. It can use either Ethernet, Wi-Fi, or cellular for its connection to send out the signal. And so I I started because the lady who was the firmware engineer before me left. And so it was a jump start to finish up the firmware, get everything ready, fix bugs coming in, and then take a board through certification. I had not done that before. And so it was a learn as you go. People understood what I was willing to learn. And I asked my manager there, so we got through certification, and then it was the next board, the next bot communicator that was supposed to come out because it's one after to the other, the next iteration. I talked with that manager and asked her, what does it look like for the same question I had asked the manager at HP? I asked, so what does it look like to get to the next level for your employees type thing? She said, to be perfectly honest, I don't know exactly what they have in mind for the company. And I said, so I'm asking in the context of I've had a previous manager who said, you have to be doing all the work for the next level before you can like do the checkbox for the next level. And her feedback was, no, that's not what she looks for. She just needs to see that you're capable. You're
Hmm.
capable of doing some of the things for the next level. So because I asked, she started taking things off her plate and giving to me. So I still was doing firmware. And just the same way I got to supervise with HP, I got to supervise the contractor and the new grad because I said, okay, what, what's for the next level? I got to do the preliminary designer document for one of the bot communicators, and I was the go-to, at least contact person for reports and feedback for the certification. And so it was a growth experience in many ways for things I hadn't done before, but it was like, hey, this is how I prep for the next level type thing. And it's important to share that, like, I like the people at each place I've worked. I've really liked most of the people I worked with. And so I try to keep in touch. And even so, while at IP Datatel, I was, oh, someone raised their hand.
Oh, it's just me. Before you go too far, I do have a question. What is it that prompted you to then ask about what it would take to go to the next level? Did something happen, or was it just you experiencing the verification of the board that you hadn't done before, and then you felt like you should ask for more? What prompted you to seek more responsibility?
So for me, I have a planning personality. So it's like if I'm
Mhm.
gonna stay, I'd like to know what I'm supposed to, like, what am I working toward? Yes, I'm churning out code, but what's like my long-term goal while I'm here type thing. And for me, it's okay, let's plan to get to the next level, that like the next step, that type of thing. So it's not just, oh, I'm doing well, I want to stay employed. Like, how am I growing? How am I improving? What's the next step? So that's why I asked. So the same reason why I asked at HP is the same reason I asked at IP Datatel, because I wanted to be able to plan for myself. And so some people are probably cool, just like, hey, I'm working, I have a steady paycheck. I want to have like, this is what I'm doing this stuff, but this is what I'm moving toward. It's just who I am type thing. So nothing had happened. So
Would
yeah.
would you advise others to have that same character trait that you have as a part of your personality?
It's a part of who I am, and so I can't for if you're interested, ask. Or some company like HP had stuff for their management track and technical track listed, and then I asked the manager, well, because I sought it out, and then I was like, okay, what does it look like for you? So if that's something you're interested in, look first and see if there's some documentation and ask. But I'm hesitant to say like that's the thing you must do or should do, because what works for one person won't work for everyone. Like that worked for my personality type, and so that's been helpful. If you're not sure, try and see, but different strokes for different folks type thing. And so
Okay, thank
because
you.
that may not work for your personality type. You may be indifferent and just want to be employed and get a consistent paycheck so you can take care of your responsibilities. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong. That's important. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. So I got extra responsibilities at IP Datatel. Nothing massive had happened type thing. And then uh a little after, we heard that we were merging with a different company called Resolution Products. And I had, like, prior to this, like HP, I wasn't aware of companies like being acquired and like being merged with at the freak. Like you, I'd have been like, no, I know about the big companies. I hadn't heard about this happening as much. And so I wish someone had told me. And so because I had experienced it before, I didn't freak out. I wondered what it would mean for like the future of the company. Like would they swap out processors? Like what would change type thing? But I was less worried then than I was with when I was with like HP going to PMC Sierra and then Microsemi. But so we merged and the two companies became Alula. We did white labeling, and that's where you ship your stuff, and like different companies can, so different security companies can put their labeling on your product. So let's say your company does a security system, and then you can put your label on the communicator because that's yours, and then another company can put their label on it along with their panels type thing and go from there. And things shifted, and so I I was informed that I'd have the while I was at Alula that since like most of their engineers were focused in the Minnesota office. I had the option for a lateral transfer, like move there or take a layoff. And I had a toddler. I was pregnant with my second child. My support system, like my mom, my aunts, and that kind of stuff, were based in Houston. And I was like, yeah, no, I can't do that. They understood, they respected it, but I took the layoff and went to a small oil and gas services company in, well, Houston adjacent, so in based in Katy. I was still doing firmware. They were familiar with what I had worked on. They asked questions and they were like, share what you can, but don't go into like specific detail. And I was very honest with them. I was like, before you like do a serious consideration of whether or not to hire me, I'm expecting my second child. And so I don't know if that'll influence or not, but if you're going to consider me, I would need like 12 weeks, even unpaid leave, fine, but I will need time to like bond with my child type thing. I still got an offer, no problem. And so I was with them for 10 months. I did firmware for one of their downhole drilling tools to retrieve data via USB instead of SPI, just to be a little quicker. They had it all like instrumented already, but no code to actually do it. And so I did that, went out, went out on leave, had all the stuff prepped because I was like, oh, this is like I'm coming back after, no problem type thing. I came back. The day I came back from leave, I got notified I was going to be laid off. It's important to say though that the manager said, please know it's not personal. It's not like the quality of your work or anything. And I got home, and after I got home, one of the ladies called me. She had a more HR role, and she was like, I'm so sorry. And she said, three of us got let go. And she's like, y'all all have young families. She was concerned. And like, yes, I was hurt, but I had gone through a layoff before. And I was told it's not like the quality of your work. It's just like, they didn't say it, but they couldn't keep, they were financial issues. It's oil and gas, and so it's cyclical. And so they couldn't afford to keep paying us type thing. And months later, they went through another round of massive layoffs. It was a small company, like massive layoffs. I was like, oh, it most definitely was not just me. It was they they just I laugh, but it's not funny. They can't keep a lot of people. And so I was fortunate that I found a position at Cubic Trafficware to do like the application level development for, so it's like embedded applications for one of their control. So it's light controllers. I was one of a handful of engineers on that team. It was a really nice experience to the extent that it was the first team I was on. There were three women, and that was a first for me on a team. That it may not be. I'm not sure what everyone's accustomed to. Like undergrad, grad school, there weren't a lot of women in classes. It was nice to, for me personally, everyone's different. It was nice to work with three women on the team. Like everyone else were good engineers type thing. And the floor I was sitting on, there were other women on it was just nice for me. And so I had two kids then, they're little. And so like people would ask, people had family, and it was a nice experience for me. And so one of the lessons I learned with the group from HP and PMC Sierra was that I needed to speak up for myself a bit more, not just, hey, what's the next step? Like, hey, this dude is a bit of a bully. He's being awkward. Please have him leave me alone type thing. My manager at HP asked me, hey, how come you don't speak up for yourself? Like, he's like, I've talked to my wife about this. And I was like, um, as the youngest like full-time female employee, then I was like, I shouldn't be the one who has to say stuff like this. Like y'all should know better. And he was like, I'll handle it type thing. And so something else popped up at Cubic. And even though I liked the people I worked with, a tech lead said something that was very, very rude, disrespectful, and extremely condescending. And I was like, I'm not staying here if I have to work for him. And I like the other people, but I'm not doing this. I learned my lesson from my manager talking to me from the HP group. And so I looked around. I found I looked around, found something else, and I was like, well, I need to let let him know that this isn't okay. So I reported him to HR. HR coached him type thing. And like I regurgitated as much as I could remember from the conversation. And the guy from HR was just like gasping. It's like, I'm so sorry type thing. And so, but I'm glad I learned to like advocate for myself. And I didn't have to step out of who I am. I didn't raise my voice. He was like, da 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 da. So what happened is our manager asked me to take care of something. Scope exploded on it because none of it was scoped. It was like, hey, can you just take care of this? And so it took way longer than expected. I didn't have equipment I needed because we were working remotely then during COVID. And I was dependent on someone else who had equipment at their house to test. And he blew up on me and said, you just worked on this without discussing with me. And I was like, but why would I discuss it with you? Our manager asked me to work on it. And he went, oh. And but it was a lovely lesson on like setting boundaries for myself, deciding what I would and would not accept. And I was like, okay, no, because even after he apologized, I was like, I'm not going to work for you, like continue working with you because I'll always remember that this is how you spoke to me. And that's when I hopped over to L&T. I looked around at other teams before I officially made the decision, but there were no roles looking. There was one role open, but it didn't fit my skill set. And so I was like, let me just accept this offer and how. And so I've been with L&T for a little bit over 4 years. And so it's been really good. It's been really good. We're on the second client with them. And so, yeah, it's been a really, really good experience thus far. Learning, growing in some ways. So, yeah.
Wow, quite a story of bravery. And I can kind of see you coming into your own courage with some of these roles, especially being,
Afraid. They've just gotten home from school.
oh, that's okay. No problem.
Hey, go to grandma. Go to grandma. But I have to think. Not right now. I'm in a meeting. Go. Okay. Please go. I will check later. Okay. I love you. Sorry.
Okay,
I apologize. They just came in from school.
no problem. You even mentioned earlier that you were always upfront with your family situation, and it seemed to continue to work in your favor as you're able to just remain yourself, which is kind of a theme I'm finding with your career journey
Yeah.
as a whole.
I
Um,
had straight up been like, hey, before I started with L&T, I like
mhm.
accepted a start date and I was like, like I went to put everything in my calendar and I was like, oh my gosh, I had 3 doctor's appointments for my son that week. And I reached back out and I was like, I'm so sorry. Can we start a little like the following week? Because I have 3 doctor's appointments. And he was like, just take a couple hours each day and take your kid to the doctor and then come back. And I trying to disrespect y'all's time. And he was like, a doctor's appointment is no big deal. And I was like, okay.
That's so good. So good. Um, do you have any additional advice specifically for people who are interested in embedded software itself?
So I say be open. Like I've worked in different sectors and the knowledge transfers. Like
Mm.
oil and gas, there's a downhole drilling tool. They still need firmware. Smart storage still needs firmware. Defense needs firmware. And so it has so many applications. Don't like as long as you're willing to learn, you're good to go. So don't be discouraged. Yeah.
And with what you do at L&T today, is there an aspect of it that stands out to you that works well with your particular personality type? What's one of your favorite parts of your job with L&T?
So for me, I can personally span like low level, like device drivers, like bare iron bring up to like model based design. So like all of undergrad, grad school. And so I'm getting to do a little bit of both. And so I really, really like that part now and the people I work with. So I'm doing model-based design, like a system engineering approach to model-based design, which is different from what I had done before. And I'm still getting to do low-level implementation and testing. So I really like that. So yeah. Does that answer your question or?
It does. It does. I'm curious about what aspects stand out to you for this particular role.
I'm working on a new switch that I hadn't done, I hadn't worked on before
Hmm.
starting with this group. And so I didn't have like networking background, but I
Oh,
can learn and I can leverage what I know. I now know how to use Wireshark. I hadn't needed to before. And so I'm essentially adding to the tool repertoire, if that makes any sense. I'm like, okay, it's
sure.
really like that. And the willingness of others to like explain things to you, like clearly you don't know one person knows everything and oh, I didn't know how to use Wireshark. So someone explained it to me and walked me through collecting the info. So the same way, someone else may not know how to use a tool I know how to use because I've used it before, either in school or with another company. I'll hold your hand and walk through, just like others have held my hand and walked me through. And so I really like that. I like environments where it's not like, oh, you're just slow. It's, hey, you haven't learned how to use this yet. So let's learn.
So I've heard you mention a couple of times that you really appreciate the people that you've worked with and the people at different places,
I
even
am
if.
big on how you treat me. The
Mhm.
work can be interesting, but if you treat me badly, I'm not interested in staying. And so I have the group from last August. I went to lunch with a bunch of people from like IP Datatel slash Alula. Uh, every holiday, I send like text messages to people from Sanvian. I periodically check in via WhatsApp from people from the HP, well, two women from the HP group. One, no, actually both are contracted. Oh, it's three. And so I'm very much, this sounds weird, but like I like how I mesh with certain people and if it's a good fit because I've worked with people before and it's like, oh, you're looking for a new job. And I'm like, dude's a good engineer. And he's like, oh, she's a good engineer. Oh, I have a buddy at a company who good dude. He's looking for people if it's something you'd consider. And so I like things like that. And while I was with Alula, when I accepted the layoff, another engineer was like, you know what? You're a good engineer. Let me know if you need a reference. I've worked with this recruiter, so I can put you in contact with her. So I like relationships like that. My primary mentor now is my old boss from IP Datatel. Like I like her as a person. And so the first time we met up after she was no longer with IP Datatel was for her to meet my son in person. I had a new, and so we've just kind of kept that up. And it's been really, really good. So I'm very much about like, yes, the work is good, but I'm very much about, for me, like, are there people I gel with type thing? Yeah.
So after experiencing three layoffs, according to your screenshot that you're sharing with us right now, um, one of your best lessons learned would be what?
A layoff isn't a hindrance to career progress. It's just a lot of times they can't afford to keep you and whoever else got laid off. Like we've heard of like some companies doing laying off thousands of people. It's
Mhm.
not because they weren't qualified, because they weren't doing like solid work. It's just, hey, they're going in a different direction. The layoff doesn't define you. Feel your feelings, prep your resume, reach out to your network, and start interviewing when you get the opportunity. That's the biggest lesson. The first time it was like, but it was a soft landing. The second time I was like, did I not put in enough work, like because I can't move, because I need the family support type thing. Like I seriously questioned like my worth as an engineer. And I was just like, but I had that other engineer who was like, you're a good engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know if you need a reference. And I was like, okay, so I need to reframe this. It's just I can't move to Minnesota because of like how my family's set up. So yeah, it helped with the reframe. So that's the biggest lesson I've learned.
Did you have other slides that you wanted to share with us about your experience?
No, so I can take questions. The next slide says thank you and ask if there are questions. Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't want to
No, no.
keep you from sharing any more of your presentation if you had more to share with us. I don't see any questions in the chat at this time, but I do want to take a second to ask if there are any. If anyone has a question, if you'd like to raise your hand or let us know what thoughts you might want to share before we close, since we're in the last section of our webinar. Okay. I have a question about technically the technical work that you partake in at all of these jobs, actually. What kinds of resources, besides your formal schooling, what types of resources have been beneficial to you as you grow in your knowledge? Because I've heard you say you've had to learn new things along the way, different programs. And yes, you said you relied on people to show you the way, but are there other resources in instances where maybe someone couldn't hold your hand through the process?
Oh, that's happened a lot in the sense like I learned how to read a data sheet during undergrad. And so like the willingness to like look at the data sheet, see what it says, knowing
Mm-hmm.
what to look for in the data sheet, looking at a spec, like an IEEE spec or another, like a UART spec, that ability, it's like I know a little, and so I can go look up on my own type thing. It's this
Okay.
part going to the manufacturer's website and getting the data sheet, figuring out where you fall within the spec type, the information you need. That came up at HP, when I was at IP Datatel, most definitely same thing, because I hadn't worked on a DSPIC before. I hadn't done any USB driver code at all. Like my experience with USB was like plug in to the port and that's it. So yeah.
Okay. And when you mentioned having a mentor, can I ask what kind of process did you go through to acquire such a mentor? Is that something that you knew to do? Were you always thinking of having a mentor?
Honestly, it grew organically. She was my manager. I liked the rapport.
Okay.
And so we stayed in touch. She offered like, hey, she heard I laid off. I got laid off. She was like, oh, let me put a couple feelers out in my network type thing. I spoke with so and so. They're open to like chatting with you type thing. And so it just grew organically. Like I had heard people have like company assigned mentors,
Right.
but I didn't have that. I like the organic growth. Like the last two meetups with her, she'd been like, "Oh, you need to prep for the next level," type thing. It's just an informal, "Hey, prep for the next level. You want to go?" And I'm just like, "Oh, she knows what's going on in my life," and so she was like, "Yeah, prep for the next level," and I was like, "Oh, okay, so I should consider that now." Okay, all right.
So at
I,
this time, that relationship is how long? How long have you been in that relationship? Since HP, you said?
no, no.
Or
So
since
since
ID
IP
dating?
Data Tell, yeah,
IP dating.
yeah. Hey, we kept in touch. I guess she was mentoring while I worked for her. And so, like, by taking things off her plate, and I didn't even recognize it, I just was like, hey, I can grow a little bit type thing to get to the next level. And so she just continued. So she probably was looking at it in that sense, but I didn't have the knowledge to say, hey, this is what it's going to be type thing. But she was willing, and I'm grateful.
So very organic. And I'm glad that you did begin to see things from that perspective. We do have a question. Janori, would you like to ask your question yourself? Are you able to talk, or should we ask it for you in the chat?
Sure, I can talk. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so the question that I have, good presentation. I would
Thank you.
like to start out with that. I enjoyed it. Um, and the question that I have is, what advice would you give to a graduating senior who wants to pursue a master's in embedded systems, or if the graduate degree is even worth it at all? Should I just go into industry and just get my experience, just build on my experience and certifications, or pursue the graduate degree?
Honestly, it's a question of what you want long term. I will say my first job, my pay was based on like education and experience. And so coming in with the master's, I felt in a higher bin than I did if I had just come in straight out of undergrad. It's a very personal decision. I can't say if something is worth it for you or not, what like your financial requirements are. Maybe it's in your best interest to get a job right out of undergrad. I do know there are some companies who will, after you've worked for a bit, they will pay for you to get your master's while you're working for them. And so that's an option to consider. So it really is what works for you. I've heard someone once shared that he got laid off from a job and he enrolled in a master's program. And then after he was finished, he found another job. And so it really depends on what works for you. Like, I'm hesitant to say it's not worth it or if it is worth it. I know that's what you want me to say, but it's like, do you want a master's? Does your life permit you to go from straight from undergrad or to grad school? My kids in the background, sorry. Can you go straight from undergrad to grad school? Or, buddy, come on, go back to grandma. Stop being silly. Come on. So it really is about what works for you and what you could, sorry, uber unprofessional, but yeah. My, yeah, it just really what works for you. What works for you. If you want a master's, if you can get a job where they'll pay for the master's while you work and like provide a guarantee of employment, do that. I can't really say. I don't know if it makes you more marketable. It's about what you want to do and whether or not having a master's gets you there more quickly or whether having the experience gets you there quicker. So it's a personal call.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Janori. That was a great question. Would you say that there was a best industry out of all the different roles that you have had? Was there an industry that felt more suited to the role that you had, or did they all seem the same because you just were doing your same role?
They were different in many ways, all have pros and cons. I mean, I was in oil and gas for a briefer amount of time, but it's known to be cyclical. There are people who spend their
Mm.
careers in oil and gas. And so it's hard to say. I've been doing firmware everywhere, so at various levels. So it just depends on what you're looking for. Like where I am now suits my life and my lifestyle well. They don't think it's a big deal. Hey, I need to take some time off to take my kid to an appointment. I'm missing a meeting because I got a call from the school nurse. Hey, I did that last week, no big deal type thing. And so who knows if other companies would have also been a good fit, but where I am now works for the season of my life. So it's hard to say. Like while I was there, I saw the pros and cons to each. And so,
So even though you're working within
pardon?
aerospace, so even though you're working within aerospace right now, still doing firmware, when you were in oil and gas, it was the personality of the industry to be cyclical, but is aerospace that way, or have you noticed, or?
It depends
Okay.
because Lockheed does both aerospace and defense, and they go through layoff cycles as well. So it's really, really hard to say. It's just kind of like where funding is, and you can get lucky. I knew someone I met while working there. He was with Lockheed for 17 years, and then they went through another cycle and he got laid off. So it really depends. It really, really depends.
Okay. So you wouldn't say you felt more secure one place or another because
No,
it depends on so many out.
it's tech. And so sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's not so great. In 2011, it was a rough period like it is now. And so you just
Mm.
I'll be brutally honest, be thankful for a job and like hang on for as long as you can type thing. So
Do you have any predictions for the future or advice for the future in knowing what we know about the current atmosphere in tech? Do you have any advice or predictions that you would want to share
can't
or
really
thoughts?
I can't make any predictions.
Mhm.
Continue learning, be willing to continue learning, learn that life happens, just kind of try your best to prep. The
Mhm.
advice a friend gave me that his parents told him, make sure you've saved 3 to 6 months uh
Mm.
like living expenses. His dad was an engineer. He's like, so just in case, you never know what happens. Like if you could get laid off. And so try if it's your first job, you can't have 6 months saved necessarily because you're just out of school type thing. But try your best and plan accordingly. And so go from there.
Very good. Well, if we don't have any further questions in the chat, um, I know we're coming up on time here. Do you have any final words that you would want to share with us or leave us with today? We're really, really thankful for your time. Your presentation has been excellent. Thank you for sharing the ins and outs of your personal experience. And also, we say hi to your kiddos. Just once.
So I will say just they're always going to need engineers. And so
Mhm.
if you're willing to learn and shift and you've actually learned, like during school, you learn being an engineer, you learn how to learn. And so
Mm,
the type of job you have may shift, like what you focus on day to day may shift, but you're still employable. And so don't, yeah, be willing to adapt and just look for your next role type thing.
very, very good. Well, I want to thank you for spending your time with us today. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for just giving details on what it's like to be on the journey that you've been on. Your journey's been really spectacular, and I appreciate personally the details you shared about the challenges that you had to overcome, and just the personal courage that you had to use. That's very inspiring to women, to people who are in a field that they find themselves a minority in. So I thank you for sharing that. I do want to let everybody know that we have a couple of connections that I just put in the chat if you would like to keep up with Commandit's events. And a couple of hyperlinks have been added. I want to thank everyone for coming out today to our Commandit webinar for the month of March. I posted in the chat as well that this video recording will be available. And so we hope that you come back to our website to check once we've been able to upload this webinar from today. So again, we really want to thank you, Shanna-Shaye Forbes, for your time and for sharing your information about your career journey. We thank you for just making it a point to come and share with us and give details about this process. We're all very interested in how you've become the leader that you are today. We wish you the best for you and your family. And we thank you again for being a partner with Commandit today for our webinar.
Thank you all for having me.
Okay. Have a wonderful day.